How's it going, YouTube? We are back, and as you can tell by this ugly bracket behind me, we are doing a bracket for the NBA playoffs. If you guys like stuff like this, I'm going to have to ask you to subscribe and comment, and leave a like as well. Let's get started. I think I'm going to start with the Western Conference here. The Jazz and the Grizzlies, obviously the 1 versus the 8. The Jazz have been a really surprising team so far this year. Not surprising, but like surprising that they managed to do so well. I'm gonna take the Jazz in what's it called? And like I think the Jazz in 5 games here. So I'm gonna take the Jazz 4-1. Jazz, and then the Clippers and the Mavericks. This is a pretty interesting matchup to say the least. I believe they went at it in 2020 in the bubble. And the Mavericks, without Porzingis, pushed the Clippers to the limit. And if Doncic can continue to play that spectacular level that he does with some, subsequent scoring from his other pieces, like Porzingis and everyone else. If Porzingis is healthy even, I don't even remember if he's healthy or not. But they can maybe take that series. I can't see it going any less than 7 either way, really. I think that the teams are, I think the Clippers are a better team than the Mavericks, but the Mavericks have, more potential in terms of scoring. So in this series, I am going to take the Clippers in 7. Clippers in 7 there. Nuggets and Trailblazers is another series that I can easily see going 7 games. We all know how good Dame Lillard is. And we all know how good Jokic is. Probably the MVP in my opinion for Jokic. I just don't think that Lillard has enough secondary scoring on his team. McCollum is, he's hit or miss. We don't really know any given day. You can get 30 from him or you can get 15. And Lillard needs more support than that. He can't just be dropping 45 every night in the playoffs. It's just not possible. So I'm going to take the Nuggets in 7 games. And then the Suns and the Lakers. This is probably the most intriguing matchup in round 1. The Suns being the 2 seed and the Lakers being the 7 after getting out of the playing game against Golden State. A lot of people think that the Suns are dead in the water here. A lot of people think the Lakers are dead in the water here. This is probably the biggest, upset watcher of the first round. I think the Suns are the better basketball team right now. I think they're playing better ball. I think the addition of Chris Paul has really taken them to that next level. Devin Booker's, been scoring at a crazy level. Michael Bridges is a pretty good 3-point shooter. I'm going to take the Suns in 6 games here. Although I am a Lakers fan, I just don't think that they are playing good enough basketball or are healthy enough in order to really put themselves in a position to beat the Suns here. We have the Jazz, the Clippers, the Nuggets, and the Suns. The Jazz and the Clippers. This is going to be another interesting matchup. Pretty defensively heavy in those two. Obviously, Kawhi and Gobert. Gobert might win Defensive Player of the Year. I know he's nominated. Really, I think it's going to come down to what the outside scoring is going to be like for the Clippers. Obviously, the Jazz have Donovan Mitchell as well. I hope his ankle's okay. I know he suffered an ankle injury. I just don't see the Jazz as being that much of a threat, in my opinion. Like, they're a good team. They are a really good team. And by the way, I'm going to say it now. Just because I go against your team doesn't mean that I hate your team. I'm just saying what I see from the outside. Jazz and Clippers, I think we're going to see Clippers in 7. Clippers in 7 there. I think they're a pretty even team, pretty even matchup. Donovan Mitchell will probably be what turns the tide. Is how good is Donovan Mitchell going to be? Obviously, Donovan Mitchell played extremely well against the Nuggets, and he really was carrying them in those games, but Jamal Murray was just a little bit better. And the Nuggets without Jamal Murray is going to be interesting. It's going to be, we're going to have to see what Michael Porter Jr. can do in terms of secondary scoring for Jokic. Now Michael Porter Jr. is the second option. There's no Jamal Murray. That obviously affects how deep their playoff run can go. as they have the Nuggets as they have the Suns in the second round. I think the Suns win that in 6 games as well. I'm really high on the Suns, as you can tell. I think the Suns are extremely talented and extremely young with a good veteran presence. DeAndre Ayton is extremely young, and he's a double-double kind of guy. So many good young talented players, good young talented scorers. I just think it's their time right now. I think they might need one more year. They face the Clippers in the conference finals on my bracket right here. It's another series I can see going 7 based on the scoring and based on the Clippers' defense. Obviously, the Suns play pretty good defense as well, or else they wouldn't be here. I'm going to take the Suns again here in 7 games. I think that series goes 7 games because Kawhi can easily steal a game for the Clippers as well as Paul George. I got the Suns in the finals in the West. You could really make an argument for any of these teams in the West. I just think right now the Suns are nasty. I think they're really good. I think the West bracket is a lot more difficult than the East. The East, we kind of know the main teams, who's going to be there, who's going to do this, who's going to do that. The West, it's like, okay, how good are the Lakers going to be? The defending champs, how good are they going to be? How good are the Suns realistically? How good are they? The Trailblazers, what is Lillard going to give us? What is McCollum going to give us? The Nuggets, how much can Jokic carry? The Mavericks, how far can Luka go? The Clippers, what is Kawhi and playoff Paul George? He was pandemic P and not playoff P last year. The Grizzlies, can Ja Morant really carry them? The Jazz, is their defense good enough to win them games? Is their offense going to be able to keep up with other teams' offenses? And right now, I think the Suns are the most likely to come out of the West. That's my opinion. The Sixers and the Wizards, this should be a pretty easy series for the Sixers. I say they'll win it in 5. They're just too much. There's too much for the Wizards. Obviously, Beal and Westbrook can steal them a game, but I think that the 76ers are way too talented for them to not win the series pretty early, pretty easily. Not as taxed as other teams in the West for sure, and not as taxed as other teams in the East. I think that it'll be a pretty quick series. I think Embiid's just gonna roll all over the Wizards paint. I think that and Simmons is a pretty good defender, so I think he's gonna be put on Beal and try to limit Beal's scoring because we all know how lethal Beal can be, and it's just really gonna come down to Westbrook's production because Westbrook did not produce very well for the Rockets. I believe he was on the Rockets last year, and I think the Rockets, in my opinion, the Rockets were the biggest threat to the Lakers. And we just didn't see that kind of production. The Knicks and the Hawks. This is a really interesting series. 2 teams that probably weren't expected to be in this position, and the Knicks ended up with the 4 spot, and the Hawks got the 5. The Knicks are young, and they have probably the most improved player in Julius Randle, and the Hawks got some young, scrappy scoring threats all over their 5. They have John Collins, who's a pretty decent scorer. They have Reddish and Hunter, 2 young scorers. Trae Young, obviously. That's an interesting series, probably the most interesting out of all the series. Maybe the Nets and Celtics, actually. I'm going to take the Hawks in 7 games. Hawks in 7 against the Knicks. I just don't think the Knicks are there quite yet, and I think that the Hawks scoring is just going to be too much for the Knicks to be keeping up with. Obviously, they have Emmanuel Quickley, good young rookie, probably 4th in rookie voting. I don't think he finished in the top 3. And they have probably the most improved player in Julius Randle. But I think at some point it just becomes too much to overcome when you have all these nasty scoring threats on the Hawks. Bucks and Heat, I don't think the Heat are as good as they are last year. I think that's exactly what we said last year as well. But I think this year the Giannis is going to come in with a vengeance, and I think they also win this series in 5 games. I just don't see it for the Heat. They have some good players, some good talent. Jimmy Butler just looks absolutely cut up. He looks ripped. He looks like he's probably the most dialed in he's ever been in his career. But Jimmy Butler can only do so much. What are we going to get out of Bam Adebayo? What are we going to get out of, Tyler Hero and Duncan Robinson, players like that. With the Bucks, you kind of know what you're gonna get. Drew Holiday and Giannis, they have more consistent pieces, and I think that's gonna lead them to a victory over the Heat. And then Nets Celtics. This could be another series where we see an upset. Obviously, the Nets are super powered. They are the favorite to win the whole thing. But the Celtics are a nice team. Tatum, he's a beast. We have, is Jaylen Brown healthy? I hope Jaylen Brown's healthy. It will really make the series much more entertaining if Jaylen Brown is healthy. But they have some good pieces over there, and it really can be an entertaining series. I think the Nets still take it in 6 games. They just have too much firepower, man. They just have way too much firepower. If their defense was a little better, they could walk to the finals. But I think that KD and Harden and Kyrie, these guys are just way too good. Not to mention they have Blake Griffin as well as DeAndre Jordan, and it's just such an insane team. But they still have to meet the Bucks in the second round, which I wouldn't want to meet the Bucks in the second round. But sometimes that's just how the seeding happens, just how things go. 76ers versus the Hawks. I think the 76ers are just way too good for the Hawks. I think that the Hawks are, they're good and they're young, but they just still need some development to go. I think they're good enough to beat the Knicks. I just don't think they're good enough to beat the Celtics. I'm taking the Sixers in a 4-game sweep. I just think that they are way too talented, way too gritty. They have something to prove. I just think, Embiid is just on another level right now. And if they can get some secondary scoring from Simmons and some of their other guys on that team, they're really going to be a force to be reckoned with. And then the Bucks and the Nets. Now, this is going to be a good series, an entertaining series, because I don't really think there's anybody on the Nets that can stop Giannis. I don't really think Giannis can guard KD. I know Giannis is a, defensive player of the year, but I just don't see him being able to guard KD on the perimeter. I think KD's too quick, he's too smooth, he's too slick. He has, every trick in his bag. He can hit from anywhere, floaters, teardrops, fadeaways, 3-point shooting. He can hit it from anywhere. Nets, I think this is going to be probably the biggest challenge. Maybe not. I don't even know where I want to go. I think I'm going to say Nets in 7. Because obviously Giannis is a problem for that Nets defense, but the scoring that they get out of Harden and Kyrie and KD is just too much. Especially if each guy gives you 30 on the same night, it's just there's not enough shots to go around for that. But you get 30 from each of them, and then that's 90 points already. And where are you gonna get that kind of scoring on the Bucks? You know what I mean? So I think the Nets are we're gonna win that series in 7 games. Then you got 76ers and Nets. And this is where we see who meets the Suns in the finals on my board. I think that this right here, I think this series, the winner of this series wins the finals, in my opinion. I think the winner of that series wins the finals. And what can the Nets do to stop Embiid? You know what I mean? Who's going to be on Embiid? Is it going to be Jordan? Because I don't think Jordan can guard Embiid anymore. Maybe when he was a little bit younger. But Embiid is another animal right now. And I think that he really is an unstoppable force in this playoff run for them. I don't know if they can necessarily beat the Nets, but for the sake of this, I'm going to say that the Sixers win this in 7 games against the Nets, and we see one of the biggest upsets in the playoffs right there. Then we got the 76ers and the Suns. This is where I think that we see the inexperience and the just not being ready yet. The Sixers are a good team. We know the Sixers are a good team. The Suns were a surprising team, but they are good. And I just don't think Ayton's ready to be able to lock down Embiid, and I don't think that the scoring will be enough to beat the Sixers. The Sixers have a good defense. I think they're going to smother Booker. It's just going to be like if Chris Paul can facilitate as he always does the same way against the Sixers, they have a chance. Every team has a chance, but I think the Sixers are just too much. I think they win it in 5 games against the Suns. I'm rooting for the Suns. I really like a lot of their guys on that team. Obviously, I'm a Lakers fan, so it'd be a little annoying, but I like a lot of players on that Suns team. I just think the 76ers are too much for them right now. Maybe next year for the Suns for sure. And that's our champ. We have the 76ers champ. That's going to do it for this video. Leave a like if you enjoyed, subscribe, comment if you enjoy videos like this, and I will do more in the future. Brackets for the MLB, for the NHL, for whatever, the NFL, whatever you guys are into. Let me know, and I'll see you guys next time.